So who would have thought in 2020 we'd still be racing in Grand Prix Legends? But here it is, thriving on 22 years after it was released in 1998. Been 20 years that I started playing it in 1999 or Christmas 1999, and we're still here, and with something that's made the sim easier than ever for somebody to get into. We're looking at the 2020 GPL demo, the Grand Prix Legends demo that you can download. And it's called a demo, but it has so many interesting features and things. It's really designed to get somebody to be able to play Grand Prix Legends as easy as possible. You can go download the mod as either an installer or just a folder and unzip that or install it, and you've got the game. You don't need to download anything else from the start. You can just come in, set up your wheel, set up your controller, and then go at it. And it's been set up with some interesting content, I think, to give people that are trying it out a smattering of what is to offer in Grand Prix Legends. This was put together by a couple of folks, or at least a couple of folks in the community, really assembled by the whole community, since it features many of the mods and cars and tracks of the community. But Lee and Stefan and many others have helped put this all together and present it in a way that hopefully gets some other folks who maybe have been on the fence about trying Grand Prix Legends to try it out. So I'm going to show the demo off today. I want to go through some of the settings and things and do a quick race here to hopefully give some folks an impression of what it's like. I usually mention this at the end of my video to avoid being spammy, but the links to download all of this, or to find the website to actually download this, are right in the description of the video. You can go there. It has extremely detailed instructions on how to set up anything, how to troubleshoot most common problems if you do run into any, and how to actually download more mods and cars and tracks and all of that stuff once you figure out that you have a ton of fun racing GPL. But let's take a look. So this features all of the cars that we're looking at on the screen here in the main screen of the game. However, it's not just all of the separate mods. It's in a combination of all of them. Something that was actually released a couple of years ago called Legends of GPL. It's a mod that combines the best cars from each of the mods available for GPL into one kind of crazy combination, something that's really challenging and interesting to race with. But we'll take a quick swing here through the player info and take a look at all the cars. I'll start here with the slowest, I guess, or the oldest, very fast in its time car, and that's the Mercedes 196 from 1955, something we've raced against in our 1955 campaign. Amazing car. Sterling Moss, drove it in that year. And the best car, the championship car for that season, coming in at a whopping 290 brake horsepower, unreal for 1955. This car, challenging to drive, very different with the brake fade and everything to do with that. If we continue on, then we come into the 1965 season with the Lotus 33. This is Jim Clark's Lotus from 1965, the championship car that he drove. A really small car. The engines then obviously at the 1.5 liter size, right before they came to the 3.0 liter F1 cars. Gives you a taste for what that early 60s F1 was really like. Night and day difference from the 1955 cars that are so lumbering and high powered. 65, not as much power, but super nimble, can get around corners super fast. Honestly, if I was to start anywhere or recommend somebody drive something that's never driven Grand Prix Legends, grab the Lotus 33. I think you'll have a great time driving that around, but certainly not the fastest car we're going to look at here. Continue on, we got the BT19 from 66. It's a championship car, of course, that Denny Brabham drove it as well, but Jack Brabham raced to the championship with, coming in at 315 horsepower. We're stepping up that power. This, of course, was the first 3-liter era car, for an F1 championship. And we continue on to something a bit different. We're not just talking about F1 cars in this mod. We have the 1966 Lola T70 Mark II. This is a Can-Am car. So basically Can-Am, for the short and sweet of it, was an unlimited series, build whatever you want, run whatever you want type of series. And we can tell by the 515 horsepower that this car had, unreal type of series. And we'll see a little bit more of that. But this is from the Team Surtees, obviously, of F1 F1 fame, the Lola T70. Continue on then to the BT24 from 1967. This is part of the original Grand Prix Legends install, something that won the championship again for Jack Brabham with the 350 horsepower engine. A classic car. Also, I would say easy to drive out of the 67s. The 67s obviously are hard to drive overall, but definitely the best of that year. And we also have another car included from 1967, that being the Lotus 49. Of course, two cars included for 1967. The 49 didn't win the 67 championship, but did win the 68 championship with a little bit of aerodynamic help. But this car is so important for many reasons, and I love that they put it in as the team Papyrus being the makers of the original Grand Prix Legends game. The Lotus 49, the most iconic car, I think, from that era, with the Cosworth in the back being the first engine that was part of the chassis, the suspension mounted directly to it, just changed Grand Prix racing forever, and was initially unveiled in that 67 season, so I think had to be included here. We have a couple more. We're looking at the Tyrrell Matra MS5 from 1967. This is from the F2 mod from 1967, so the series under the 67 F1 championship. Honestly, another great car to drive as a first car. A little more power than that 65 car, so it'll teach you some better habits with the throttle, but not so much that it is out of control like the full F1 67s. And Matra, being a very famous name coming to F1 in 1968 and going on to win championships with Jackie Stewart. And if we take a look here at our next car, the Ferrari P30 from 1967. This is from the sports car mod with Grand Prix Legends. Of course, sports cars being one of the more popular mods with the sim. This is undoubtedly, to me anyway, the most beautiful car of all time, coming in at 450 brake horsepower. So if we think back to that 200 something that the Mercedes had, this car is so much quicker, and what a gorgeous car it is, but something that's very fun to drive and just also helps illustrate the difference between the different types of cars in the sim. If you drive this compared to the 65 F1 or the 55 F1, this car is heavy but has a lot of power. The suspension is much more advanced. It just shows you how varied the different things in the sim can be, and it's a whole lot of fun, obviously, to drive. Take a look with just a couple more. We have the Matra MS80 from 1969. I have pictures of all the different variations it had, but I believe we have the high wing version here in this mod. Fun car to drive with the downforce. You can tune the wings. It shows off how they were able to model wings within Grand Prix Legends. But Jackie Stewart drove this car obviously with much success, and it's a fun one to drive. It's crazy how much the car's evolved from 67 through 69, and if you want to jump quickly, you can jump from that Brabham or Lotus into this Matra and just notice how much more responsive and modern really that it feels compared to those older ones. And lastly, the granddaddy of them all, you might have snuck a peek right at the beginning, but this is the McLaren M8F from 1971. This is another Can-Am car coming in at 740 horsepower and 6,400 RPM. This is an outrageous car, something that McLaren made. I believe Denny Hulme was one of the drivers of this car. But it's the one I want to drive today in the mod, and racing all these different cars together is kind of crazy. Maybe not. It's probably intended, I guess. I think it's kind of fun to use this as a hot lapping mod and use the training mode, which you can just go out on the track yourself and try out the different cars. But we're going to try a race with the other ones so we can see just the speed difference and how different these cars are, and it's kind of fun to show off the mod that way. So before we jump into the race, and I know this is kind of a long intro, but really want to show for somebody that hasn't used Grand Prix Legends before, just a quick tour around the sim. We've got the main page here. If I jump to options, we've got the different settings for the sim, and this is what I have it set at. You can stop at each page if you want to take a look there. Controls, steering, throttles, or steering, pedals, and shifter. I'm using separate controllers for all those. So Grand Prix Legends supports all your modern wheels. We found out recently it supports OSW and direct drive wheels. with a little force feedback tweaking and stuff. So you can get all those things working. The biggest, I guess, thing that you have to consider with wheels is your steering rotations. The sim was not built with 900-degree steering in mind. The cars even back then did not have 900-degree steering for the most part. I think they were around 500, 450 to 540 really is the common consensus. So with the sim and to have the wheel match up, I set my wheel at 350 degrees, which is what I like, but I know some other folks do 540, and this will affect mostly your steering ratio. If you set yours to 350 like I do, you need to run a steering ratio of less than 10-to-1 to get enough turn in the wheel to actually turn the car. I actually tend to run lower than that with the steering ratio these days. I had been running a smaller degrees of rotation, but upped it a little bit to get more wheel in there, but something to play around with. Probably the strangest setting, I would say, from somebody coming from a modern sim into Grand Prix Legends, but once you get that dialed in, it's really great. And lastly, graphics. You can max everything out on this if you got a decent computer. An odd one is you do use OpenGL for the 3D accelerator. There is an option for Direct 3D. I would always use the V2 versions. Direct 3D tends to run slower for me, but if you have an AMD card or something else, your mileage may vary. All right, so we'll jump into single race. You also have championship multiplayer training. I don't know if multiplayer would work through here. I actually don't do a lot of Grand Prix Legends multiplayer training, of course, would be alone, but we'll do a single race. And just like the cars are kind of a best of Grand Prix Legends, so are the tracks. So we have Monza here, but this is not your normal F1 version of Monza, even the 60s version. This is your oval layout with the 10K layout, the sports car layout, I guess, from the mid-1960s. But it's done beautifully with Thomas Leckel's textures, and so it's one of the most gorgeous tracks for the sim by far, and a really, really fun one to drive. In addition to that, we have Sebring International Raceway. This, of course, the home of the 12 Hours of Sebring. This track, run on an old airport from World War II, is a super fun one to drive. Flat, but some really challenging corners. I dare you to take Sunset Bend correctly your first 20 times through there. It's super, super difficult, but a really fun track, and done again with amazing graphics. You'll see that it's a trend here. We've got Zandvoort. I think they included this specifically because it's coming back to F1 in 2020, but Zandvoort, a favorite of many, always gets requested. This is, of course, the 60s version with the long outer loop that goes through the dunes of the beach, really, and again, done up with amazing graphics. Zandvoort, a beautiful, beautiful circuit. And lastly, Road America, I think one of the best tracks in America, featured this in the sports car mod update review that I put out a little while back. Beautiful track, done recently, and it really captures that early 60s or mid 60s vibe with the circuit. So it's a limited track allotment here, but I think a lot of great options. Again, nothing you have to do once you download the mod. You just click run and you're able to get in here and do some racing. And so a ton of fun. Taking a look at the race selection, from here you can pick novice or intermediate. These actually change the physics of the cars, so I recommend always sticking with Pro or Legends, which is also called Grand Prix sometimes. These will keep the physics to be the full physics, and I honestly think learning with the full physics is better than trying to learn with the novice or intermediate, although you're free to try whatever you want. It's just a fun sim. But we'll do a short race here, so that changes our distance. We're going to run a full field of opponents. So we'll do a short race just to show off this crazy mod and the racing with all these varied cars. But yeah, we'll jump in now. So sitting at the back of the grid here in the McLaren, I didn't qualify for this one. I want to see how well we could do passing the whole field, the collection of cars in front of us. We're going to actually let them go off the line and get a head start. I think we're going to be so much faster than the McLarens and maybe the Lotus 65s that letting them get a head start will be better. Let them sort that out in T1. But as they get just out of sight here, we'll get the revs up, get it into first gear, and wheel spin all the way down the grid. Oh, almost spinning out there. This car has insane power, unmatched, I think, in the rest of the field. We've got a very big unfair advantage. driving a 1971 McLaren. A lot of skid marks there leading into the first turn, but no crashed cars as far as I can see here as we round the corner and head towards the first Lesmo. Get the car down into third and second. The McLaren here only has 4 gears, of course, so and just getting on the throttle there. So we'll probably only use 3 of them, I'm thinking. Just nipping the grass there as we rocket out of the Lesmo, and I can see the first of our Mercedes there dipping into Ascari ahead of us. We'll do the same thing here, flat out. So much grip in this car, both aero and rubber. Tires, I think, are one of the biggest things that developed. And cue the Jaws music. We're coming up quick here behind the Mercedes. We'll give him plenty of room here, slowing down for the Parabolica in the first lap. He does a really good job, actually, braking. I think this would be Fangio in front of us, or Moss maybe. We'll come around the outside of him, getting dangerously close to the cones there that separate the 2 straightaways here at Monza. That's right, we're not done a lap. We're just about to start the oval section of the track as we'll rocket past the second Mercedes and Lotus. Interesting that the Mercedes is actually in front of the Lotus. I think maybe the high-speed nature of this circuit means that car is going to actually do all right. We'll go too wide here through the oval, passing, I think, some of these F2 cars. And I think up here on the left, that's one of the 66 Brabhams. So not faring so well early on, just passing all the cars in the field. 20 cars, of course, including myself, starting the race. So we'll see how far we can actually get up here in the 8 laps that we're doing. Bouncing off the concrete through the oval. Have to take a low exit there to ensure we don't crash into the barrier. And we'll set our sights here on one of the beautiful Ferrari 312s. Like I said, one of the best looking cars, and he dips out to take a look at the inside of, I think, another one of the Brabhams. We'll put it into third here for the first corner, having to slow down quite a lot. Don't want to make any sketchy moves here on an early lap, but exiting there, we'll just put down the throttle and look how quick we accelerate. Down in a second for the Lesmos. F1 car able to outbrake us. And touching the Ferrari there, putting one of the beautiful Ferraris into the wall a bit, but able to keep it out of the wall. I think we are all right. What I was saying, the F1 cars, I think, can outbrake us quite a bit because of how light they are. Although this is not a heavy car, but we're just coming up so fast on this Ferrari. Again, such a beautiful car, but we'll just rocket by. See you later. Get it into second for the Parabolica, sliding out a little wide. Keeping it in second so we don't get too much wheel spin, although having to really feather that throttle. You have to pretend like there's an egg under it. That's how I've always thought of it. Flat out again as we'll head back into the oval. A little less scary this time without as much cars around us, but even alone, this is a terrifying circuit. I cannot imagine doing this in real life. I think we have now one of the Matras in front of us here with the high wing, the 1969 car. Looks like one of the cars out of the 68 mod as well. This would have been the early configuration of the Matra in the season, and they're still using the high wings. By the end of the year, all the cars had the low wings that look honestly very similar to the wings we have today. And I know there was some discussion on the forums about this mod when it came out, and the performances of the car, and they really retained all of the same physics that are in each of the separate mods, so you get a good feel of what the car is going to feel like when you actually download the full mod. And the performance of the AI that we're passing here are all relative to how they would be performing in those respective mods as well, so you can really notice the speed difference here between, you know, some of these 60s cars, the 71 McLaren that we're driving. It's as well as those 55 cars. I bet we'll actually come across the 55s, maybe the 65s again during this race. Only 8 laps, but it's a pretty long lap, and we're just so much faster. You can see a few more cars ahead of us, maybe another 69. Of course, there's also going to be a couple of these McLarens in the race as well, and those might be really hard to catch. I don't think we're going to catch those guys. We'll see how far we can get up the classification. So we have Jackie Stewart in front of us now in the Matra. See if we can get past him here leading into the oval. I don't think we'll get past these two other F1s. We have the 267 F1 cars in front of us, the Brabham directly in front of us, and the Lotus 49 in front of that. Looks like Hill's car. Just have to kind of coast on 3/4 throttle there. Dip down the backstretch, try to jump up the inside. Oh, getting on the grass. Not going to be able to make it 3 wide. Brabham slipping back behind and letting me up the inside, but the inside on the oval is pretty frightening. I'll slide back to where I was. That almost ended in tears there. So we'll come out onto the much wider front straightaway here to complete another lap, and the McLaren will surely pass those cars. It's 5 or so years on those, 4 years on them. Well, that was a little closer than I wanted it to be around the oval, but that's a situation you get with the cars at different speeds. It is a crazy combo. I think this mod really shines when you want to just switch cars quickly and try out the different ones. Doing a race like this can be pretty crazy, but it is a lot of fun, and hopefully for some folks here trying this out, trying Grand Prix Legends out for the first time, this is a lot of fun for you. I think it honestly plays a lot like the modern Sims with this mod, where you get a bunch of different cars and you can kind of quickly jump around and hot lap them. Hopefully some folks take to that with Grand Prix Legends, and we can keep the sim alive 22 years on. And try not to overcorrect too much. You have to be as smooth as you can possibly be in this car. Braking into the Parabolica. Probably slowing down a little too much. Always have all kinds of trouble in this corner. Oh, and the car is snapping sideways. So we'll get that throttle down again. Not seeing any cars in front of us now, so we might have reached the front of the easy to pass cars. Hearing a huge crash. I'm not sure what that is from. Might have been from the straightaway under that part of the oval. That's where the track passes underneath. Did not sound good, whatever it was. Buffeting around the corners here. High up on the oval. Just unreal, this track. We'll take a look at the pit board again. 4 laps to go, P4, so not bad at all. Pretty far up. Able to easily, this car is just so much better. I mentioned it 100 times. Get the car down into 3rd gear for the first corner. Still taking it pretty easy. But we have 4 cars in front of us, so I have to imagine it's the 2 McLarens and the 2 Lolas, the 66 Can-Am cars. Acceleration is what gets me in this car so much. You just step on the gas and the whole world seems to speed up. We're not seeing body parts or anything anywhere down here. It sounded kind of like the sound when one of these cars blows its engine. I'll have to take a look at the replay after the race, and I do see a little red dot in front of us, which I think is one of the Lolas. So we'll get it nice and easy there around the parabolica, and that power just comes on so quickly. Up through fourth gear. Into the oval again. Always terrifying when you're entering the oval. Will the car stick or not? Well, having to lift a little bit there. I didn't like my line exiting the corner. And definitely one of the Lolas here. So we'll come around, just a couple laps to go now. Try to get in the draft. Oh, such a better exit. I bet the aerodynamics on this car are just so much superior to the 66. But that's what I could do. I could go easily switch, drive that car out, take a look at how it differs from what I'm driving right now. And I've done no work on the setup. You don't need to be a setup genius to drive these. They've added really solid default setups that let you jump right in and experience the car. I've only changed the steering ratio to feel a little better with my wheel. So we'll exit the corner here, and you see the shadows on the circuit here. These are done, the textures on this track are done by Thomas Lackel. I mentioned him in the Spa 67 video, and he just has an amazing way of doing texture work that just makes this sim come alive, and there can't be enough tracks that he has done work on. Love every single one of them. The shadows are of course just painted on the surface, but he makes them look so real. This sim doesn't do shadows, so to have stuff like that just really makes it look and feel a lot better. So we're coming up now, I think I'm one of the 55s there. So definitely lapping them much slower. We'll take it to the inside before the oval. Not hard to get around, but frightening to pass a car at 100 miles an hour or whatever we're doing faster than him. Of course, in the 1955 mod, you would race at the circuit, and so he's doing the speed you would be doing. And that will feel fast because those cars are hard to handle at that speed, but as you can see, cars got a lot quicker, a lot faster. So we'll come now, take a look at the board here, but I think we're running out of time, and I do see one more car ahead, so 2 laps to go from here. I see, I think it's a black car, but it might be a Lola. Black skid marks coming into the corner. I wonder if those are from me or maybe one of the AI cars. Laying down rubber, as they say. Oh, and running a little wide through the Lesmo, but we'll get the power on here and just rock it to the second. Want to get the power down early out of the second Lesmo. We got a whole group of cars in front, I think, holding up our second place car, or third place car, podium in sight. Oh, and the 55 trying to jump out of the way, but really just making it harder. Getting all bottled up here, but gonna take it cautiously. That's the best way in real life and in the sim. We can hear, unfortunately can't see the cars blasting by on the left there. That's one thing I wish could happen, but just the way the circuits work here. But we do make that pass on that beautiful dark blue 66 car. He'll tuck in for the draft behind me. We'll see if the sheer power of the McLaren can outdo him. another few cars in front. We're going to come to 1 to go. It's always so frightening diving into the first corner like that. Or sorry, the second banked corner. Just 1 lap to go. P3 last time by though, so we're in P2 now. So that sound we heard earlier might have been one of the McLarens exploding. We'll see if we can dip by these 2 cars before the first corner. And we do successfully. I don't know, I didn't see how far ahead the leader was from us, but that the pit board would have shown second place last lap anyway, so I don't see any signs of, I think the McLaren's going to be in the lead. So we'll just round out our lap here, maybe cross our fingers we see a broken down McLaren on the side of the road. Through Ascari here for the final time. Braking for the Parabolica. Down at a second. Ooh, locking it up a little bit. Luckily not spinning it out. Brake bias, I think, pretty conservative right now. Flying past the pit lane. And onto the oval for the final time. Just barely breathing the throttle as I get on there. I'll make sure the car settles and doesn't get loose on me. Coming off the turn, we'll just kind of clip the apex on the way out. Oof, getting closer to the barrier there on the outside than I would like to. Flying down the back straightaway now into the final corner of the circuit. And what a corner it is. It's now coming to the line. From worst to, I think, second position, passing 19 cars from all different types of decades and types. That's Grand Prix Legends, and this race is not rare, you know, to have this much fun driving around. I feel like every race I do in Grand Prix Legends, I don't have to record, 100 videos to get a good race. Just everyone has its moments, passing the 2 F1 cars there on the oval, to the inside. But even stuff like this where you drive around after the race and all the marshals are waving their flags at you, and you can wave back at them. Sims don't have that these days, and I hope those things about Grand Prix Legends intrigue folks. And now that we have this GPL 2020 mod, it's so easy to go download and try it out and see if you'll get hooked like I have for the last 20 years. So we'll park it up here on the outside of Ascari. We'll let our Can-Am brother go to the inside. I think that would be Mark Donahue, if I'm not mistaken. But we'll get out here and take a look at the final results. Take a look here. So Peter Revson wins in the other McLaren. From myself, Richie Axelson there in second place. So from last to second over that race. And Mark Donahue, I was right, in third place in the Lolo with John Surtees behind him. Denny Holm, Graham Hill. This is a who's who, of racing. Of course, in the 60s and 70s, all driving their respective cars, and something that is a ton of fun to take a look at. So I hope this was an interesting race for folks. I hope this gets the word out about the GPL 2020 demo. Take a look in the description, like I said, for some links to that. The website's very well done, lays out exactly how to install it, how to get it running, and answers a lot of the common questions. But if you do have any questions, just right here, I'll try to respond to as many as I can. So try to do some more videos soon. Appreciate everybody sticking through if you did the whole way, and I'll talk to you again next time.